Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Let's Paint. So today I'm starting to work on my plague. At the time I recorded this footage, we're about middle of end of January. We're creeping into the beginning of February. Adepticon is the end of March, and I have to have 3,000-ish points of plague done. My enforcers are ready, but I also have somewhere in the area of a dozen tables of terrain to get painted. So I'm trying to crank fast and get some stuff out. To make matters worse on myself, I have an Adepticon pregame tournament at the end of February. So really, my goal is to get all that terrain and everything done before the end of February. So I'm taking some shortcuts with my plague, and admittedly, I did on my initial batch too. This is not the faction that I really want to paint, but that was enforcers. I'm an enforcer sucker. So with the plague, I am going a much quicker and easier speed paint kind of route. This video, I'll be focusing on the stage threes. So we'll be looking at the zombies, the ghouls, and the HMGs. And they're all going to get a very similar paint job. We're going to start with a black prime. Once that black prime is done, we'll actually do a burgundy base coat, similar to how I did my enforcers with the Payne's Gray. The burgundy will go down at a 45-degree angle and cover the entire model. Then, using a white ink, I'll apply a zenithal from above for the highlights. This will block in basically all of my standard colors for the model. Now, with the stage 3 zombies, we'll move into using, I believe it's nuclear orange or fire giant orange is the color I chose to do as like a mining jumpsuit, which is kind of a disservice to these plague models. The amount of detail that Mantic crammed into these sculpts is phenomenal. And I feel somewhat guilty giving these guys kind of a fast, dirty, onto the table, quick paint job. But the speed paints and the undercolor and the details on the model all really seem to work together to give what I think is a decent result in the end. So to break that down, with the zombies, to make sure they're easily identifiable, I did the jumpsuits in a fire giant orange to make them look kind of like miners. Going off of reading Frovox Enigma, I was thinking about in the stage threes just basically being the grunts and the miner staff of the planet that was infected early, going about and doing the will of everybody else. With the ghouls, I wanted to go for more of that military look, so I went with camo green, camo cloak, I believe the speed paint is called, as the color for their uniforms. That carried over to the HMGs as well, since they're all the gun-toting, shooter versions of the zombies. And then I used just a magenta wash over the entire model. This is kind of bring everything together, and it also provides a decent tint on the skin tone. If you wanted to go a step further, there is a speed paint color called Murder Scene. If you do a 1-to-1 mix with the speed paint medium, it dilutes it just enough that it doesn't overpower, and you can paint your skin with that instead, which we'll see I do a considerably amount more with the stage 2s. I kind of just divulged everything in this early section. I know we're just watching some stuff get sprayed. So let's crack into the more specifics and brushwork, and then you can see how everything turns out. So it occurs to me here, dear viewer, that I lied to you. I didn't use camo cloak. I used gunner camo. So for the ghouls, since you've seen the entire process with the zombies, I'll take a little more step by step here just to break down so that we're clear on what I did. The ghouls have a little more bare chest showing, a little more skin showing, which works out well. My goal here is to ensure that the ghouls and the HMGs are easily discernible from the zombies when you've got them on the tabletop. And at 10 to 12 millimeter scale, and with my older eyes, it can be hard to separate them when you're looking at them from 3 feet away. So I wanted to make sure that the zombies popped with that orange, and you can move those hordes and clearly see them, and you can more tactically deploy and adjust your shooters so that you get the most out of them on the field. So we'll go through a little more step by step here, and you'll see how I apply each section, and I'll make sure to address the wash and everything for the skin tones. With the skin tone on these zombies, since I did the zenithal white from above, we've kind of got the burgundy bleeding through a little. It gives it kind of an off, kind of like reddish hue. So I went with a magenta wash, and this is just 1 part wash to 1 part water and or medium, whichever your preference is. This gives a nice kind of irritated purplish fleshy tone that I really like for the models. Now I mentioned earlier, alternatively, and you'll see this excessively with the stage 2s that I will show you in a different video. I used a color called Murder Scene from the Armor Painter Speed Paint line, and that had to be mixed down 1-to-1 with the Speed Paint medium to thin it out so it didn't oversaturate them. But either are completely viable options if you want that kind of irritated flesh look. I like my Plague looking a little more reddish and bruised and irritated because the way I understand the lore is that they're not so much undead zombies as they are rabid, rabies-esque infested crazy people. Wash in place, we want to go ahead and hit all the weapons on these Ghouls and HMGs with just a coat of Grim Black. It's going to do all the heavy lifting for us. The white Zenithal is going to give us the highlight we want on it, and we'll just be able to get these weapons spaced out nice and quick. To go along with that kind of reddish, irritated skin, there's a lot of bony protrusions that pop out on the Ghouls and the HMGs and even the stage 2s. To kind of pronounce this a little bit, I take a mix of 1-to-1 Speed Paint Medium and Hive Dweller Purple. I mix that up, and then I apply that to the spiky bits popping out just to kind of differentiate them from the skin tone and add a little more color to the model. Next up, I'm going to take a drop of khaki, and I'm going to apply just a strip along the ammo feed belt hanging off of all the HMGs. This will just add a little splash of contrast to them and make it a little more pronounced for them on the tabletop. This is where the guilt started kicking in from abusing these really well done models. I take a little golden brown and I use that to apply some color to the shell casings or actual ammunition hanging off that ammo belt. I said earlier on that I feel like the speed paint method to this, while it's effective and they look fine on the tabletop, and I think they turned out pretty nice for the minimal effort that went into them. Such a good job on these sculpts and so much detail, especially for the scale, that some of it had to be picked out. The HMGs also have a nice thick belt or bandolier strapped across their chest in the effort to make sure that I'm doing as many little things as I can to help differentiate the models. I decided to take some caramel brown and just hit that real quick across the chest and back on those HMG models. Well, as we round these guys out, I decided that with some of the additional details painted on, that everything wasn't really getting enough contrast that it needed. So I went ahead and did a thinned down black wash, and this is just 1-to-1. I use wash glaze medium, a drop of water, and a drop of wash. So it's 3 materials, so it's 2-to-1 against the wash. This thins it down so it doesn't shift your color tone too much, but it still seeps into those crevices and provides you some shadows, lines, hard contrast. Especially effective with like the ammo belts on the HMGs, just to kind of separate those individual shell casings out. Apparently, I didn't get footage of attaching them to the base and finishing them off for the Ghouls, so I'm going to recycle some of the zombie footage here. But essentially, all you're doing is gluing the model down, applying a texture paste, and then some tufts. If you've seen any of my other videos, this process is pretty much universal across all of the epic scale models I've done. But here's just some quick snippets of it, and with that, we'll move straight into how they turned out. If you enjoyed this video, appreciate the like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, that would be awesome. I'm trying to push content out to the Epic community, and likes, subscriptions, comments, all that stuff pushes the algorithm. If you'd like to hear me discussing Epic Warpath and the Warpath universe in general, more in depth and broadly, you can check out the Pinned and Broken podcast, available on my YouTube page or wherever you listen to podcasts. And with that, here you are. Thanks for watching.